markets are closed, but the business stories are just heating up. Hello, I'm Mai Rodriguez. Catch up with us on Business Brief. Asian shares are lower after overseas markets get a big lift from optimism over AI technology. All major Asian indices are in the red, with South Korea's Kospi falling the most at nearly 2%. In the currency market, the US dollar depreciates against the Japanese yen, but appreciates against the rest of Asian currencies. The Australian dollar, meanwhile, depreciates against the greenback. In commodities, gold drops nearly 0.5%, while oil prices are mixed. In cryptocurrencies, Bitcoin falls over 1%, and Ethereum drops almost 2%. The Independent Commission for Infrastructure calls on the Ombudsman to probe former Public Works Secretary Manuel Bonoan and Undersecretaries Roberto Bernardo and Maria Catalina Cabral for possible breach of the Code of Conduct and ethical standards for public officials. This is in connection with a ghost project in Plaridel, Bulacan, worth nearly 70 million pesos. The ICI also wants Cabral, Bernardo, and others included in the probe. The Commission on Audit previously said that the Plaridel project has been fully paid, but it does not exist. Bonoan and Cabral have resigned from their respective posts. The DPWH website may be a potential target for hacking and possible DDoS attacks. Paulo Barcelon has more on this developing story. Go ahead, Paulo.
My cybersecurity expert Art Samaniego says the DPWH website may be likely target for hacking and distributed denial of service or DDoS activity on Wednesday. This comes after the Department of Information and Communications Technology issued a precautionary alert about possible DDoS campaigns that could disrupt websites.
So maaaring ang attack na makikita natin ngayon tungkol sa mga yung mga iniimbestigahan na ngayon ng mga anomalya, saka yung discontent ng mga tao papunta sa DPWH, kasi ito yung main problem natin ngayon.
A poster has been circulating online about hackings on November 5, indicating the DPWH as a target. Experts say this may be connected to the flood control scandal. Hackers are expected to conduct both protest actions through the Million Mask March, or MMM, and through DDoS attacks. November 5 has been marked by hackers as a global day of protest. The date is symbolically linked to Guy Fawkes Day, which is often referenced by hacktivist groups. A DDoS attack would primarily disrupt access to services rather than immediately steal personal data, but it can create opportunities for further malicious activity. Government IT teams and private providers are advised to apply security measures and be on the lookout for unusual traffic patterns. Samaniego also urges micro, small, and medium entrepreneurs to put a premium on cybersecurity as part of their investments.
Pag na-attack ka, pag na-down yung website mo, patay na yung business mo. More than 70% ng small and medium enterprise, small and medium businesses, pag na-attack, di na nakakabangon. That's more than 70%. Ganun po kalala ang problema ng cybersecurity. So hindi po ganun kamahal mag-invest sa cybersecurity.
In the Palace Press briefing the Palace Press briefing earlier, Undersecretary Claire Castro of the Presidential Communications Office said that the government is already preparing for potential threats to the country's cyberspace. They hit Oplan Cyber Shield, while Samaniego adds telcos, banks, and other digital wallet providers are preparing traffic filters and other measures to mitigate potential interruptions. Individuals should update devices, enable two-factor authentication, and avoid clicking suspicious links or attachments. Mai.
Thank you for that report, Paulo Barcelon. Special courts designated to handle cases related to the flood control scandal already in the works. This was confirmed by Supreme Court Associate Justice Maria Filomena Singh in an interview with BNC's At the Forefront. Singh said the judiciary is still sorting out specifics behind the process. The High Court has also ordered the monitoring of infrastructure-related cases in regional trial courts.
We are just awaiting more facts to come to light, like how many cases will be filed, in what areas should we prioritize this before the court issues the necessary circulars on this matter.
Property giant Megaworld reports a strong net income for the first 9 months of 2025, up 14% to almost 18 billion pesos. In its disclosure, the company said the growth was driven by the solid performance of its core businesses. This is particularly due to its mall and office leasing, residential projects, and hotel operations. We're taking a short break. More stories are coming up next. You're watching Business Brief. You're back on Business Brief. Petron Corporation reports a net income of 9.7 billion pesos for the first 9 months of the year. In its disclosure, the company said this is 37% higher than last year's 7.1 billion pesos. The growth was driven by higher domestic sales, lower costs, and improved plant efficiency. With growth stalling and investors losing confidence, Malacanang is now confronting the reality of a weakening economy. Economic Planning Secretary Arsenio Balisacan says the Philippine industry sector may be at its lowest point in recent years. GDP growth remains below the government's 5.5 to 6.5% target for the year, averaging 5.4% in the first half. Slow government spending, weather disruptions, and both global and local uncertainties have likely dragged down the growth. A government crackdown on anomalous flood control projects has also curbed spending, cutting 141.7 billion pesos from the 1.6 trillion infrastructure program in the third quarter alone. Balisacan expects a slowdown to be temporary, with a gradual recovery seen in the coming months as projects resume and spending normalizes. A top economist warns that Philippine economic growth may slow to just 5.2 to 5.3% in the third quarter. This as the infrastructure corruption scandal shakes investor confidence. On BNC's Business 360, Reyes Tacandong Senior Advisor Jonathan Ravela said, restoring trust will require strong action, including holding those involved accountable to prove the government's commitment to clean governance. He noted that uncertainty has weighed heavily on the stock market, now the world's worst performer after a 20% drop over the past decade. The index tumbled as much as 2.8% on Monday, extending the year's decline to over 11%, the weakest showing in Asia.
I think what we saw yesterday was more of, again, a reaction to the possible impact of the corruption scandal. So people were probably expecting GDP numbers to still stay above 5%. Given that, initially, my point of view, I was looking at initially 5.7, mainly because there could be tailwinds from the second quarter election spending. So, given that there's an improvement in inflation and, consumer would most likely spend. But eventually with this corruption, most likely we'll see the third quarter GDP growth at best maybe 5.2 to 5.3%.
The Bangko Sentral says Philippine banks are likely to keep their lending standards steady for the rest of the year. In its latest survey of 58 banks, the BSP found that 86% plan to keep their standards for business loans unchanged, 10.5% may tighten, and 3.5% could ease. For household loans, 87.5% of banks will maintain current standards, 10% may tighten, and 2.5% may ease. Loan demand remains mixed. with more borrowers expected to take out loans, though most banks still see overall demand as steady. As of end August, total bank lending reached 13.62 trillion, up 11.2% year-on-year. The BSP says if any changes occur, banks are more likely to tighten than ease their lending rules. Defense Chief Gilbert Chodoro meets with retired U.S. Army General David Petraeus on Tuesday. He is now the chairman of Kohlberg Kravis Robertson Company, a global investment firm. They explored potential partnerships and strategic investments to strengthen the country's defense capabilities to boost the modernization of the armed forces of the Philippines. The firm, which has about $2 billion worth of investments in the Philippines, also conveyed its confidence in the country's economic and strategic potential. Two Filipinos make it to Forbes Asia's Power Businesswomen list for 2025. They are recognized for their role in driving growth and innovation as the region's business landscape continues to evolve. Among them is Robinson's Land Corporation President and CEO, Maybel Aragon Gobio. She's the first woman and non-family member to lead a property arm of the Gokongwei Group. Last May, she laid out a 5-year, 125 billion peso expansion plan for the company. She aims to double the net income to 25 billion by 2030. Also listed is Ayala Corporation Managing Director Mariana Zobel de Ayala. She's the 8th generation leader of the company, handling leasing and hospitality of the property unit Ayala Land Incorporated. Zobel is leading the firm's 17.5 billion peso malls redevelopment program. We're taking another breather, a look at how Philippine shares did today when we return. Stay tuned. In New York City, mayoral candidate Zoran Mamdani lashes out at U.S. President Donald Trump by urging New Yorkers to stand up to bullies. This after Trump threatened to restrict federal funds for the city if Mamdani wins the election. Mamdani also criticized Trump's preferred candidate, Andrew Cuomo, saying they have the same sense of impunity. Mamdani has been leading in the polls.
Donald Trump ran a presidential campaign with the promise of cheaper groceries. Donald Trump ran a presidential campaign committing to lowering the cost of living. What our success will show is that it is not enough to diagnose the despair in working class Americans' lives. You have to actually deliver on the agenda. And that is what we intend to do each and every day while we are in home.
The Philippine Amusement and Gaming Corporation, or PAGCOR, reports that its bottom line grew by nearly half year on year in the first 9 months of 2025. In a statement on Tuesday, PAGCOR said its net income from January to September reached 14.32 billion pesos, up 49% from 9.63 billion pesos in the same period last year. The agency attributed the growth to higher revenues, which climbed to 84.09 billion pesos in the first 3 quarters, a 5.87% increase from the previous year. Philippine shares bounced back in positive territory after a 2-day drop. The PSEI closed nearly 0.7% higher at 58.67, making it the best performer in Asia. Sectoral indices were mixed, with industrial falling the most at more than 1%. Financials rose the most at over 2%. Advancers outnumbered decliners 108-83, with value turnover reaching 6.4 billion pesos. Majority of the day's most active stocks ended in the green, with DigiPlus rising the most at over 10%. In the currency market, the peso is currently trading at 58.72 against the US dollar, stronger from the previous close of 58.79. That's a wrap for today's Business Brief. I'm Mai Rodriguez. Join us again tomorrow as we bring the stories that help you plan your next big, bold moves in business, only here on the Bilyonaryo News Channel.